Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our full council today, Thursday, the 18th of April. Welcome to our listeners on Islands FM, and welcome to Lucy Bell and to Stella and Philippa, who are helping with our planning team. Thank you. First item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Do I have any, please? Councillor Mumford.
Yes, I'd like to declare an interest in agenda item 9. I believe I'm allowed to speak, but I'm not allowed to vote.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Grottick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like also to declare an interest in item 9 as a member of the project board, but I will also leave before the vote. Thank you.
The second item on our agenda, minutes of our previous meeting. Does anybody have any issues or corrections required for those minutes, please? Then could I have a proposer for their adoption? Councillor Legg, seconded Councillor Mumford. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Item 3 on our agenda, Chairman's announcements. I have none. Item 4, questions under Standing Order 14. I have none. Item 5, to consider reports from committees. I have none. Item 6, to consider motions in accordance with Standing Order 12. I have none. And item 7, urgent items. I have none. So we move into part 1. The first of our planning applications, item 8 on our agenda for the Tresco application, which I believe is in your hands, Philippa.
That's right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Good morning, members. This application proposes the demolition of an existing building which is used for staff accommodation and the construction of a new building which would provide accommodation for 11 staff with shared facilities. The existing building accommodates 20 residents sharing 4 bathrooms and a single kitchen facility. The building is outdated and inefficient and is considered undesirable for attracting and retaining staff to support the island's businesses. The proposed scheme would provide 11 ensuite double bedrooms and 2 shared kitchens and a central laundry and plant room. Whilst providing less accommodation in terms of the number of rooms, the facilities would be of a far higher standard with a far greater environmental efficiency. The building would be located in broadly the same location and broadly the same size and height as the existing building. On this basis, it would not appear unduly prominent or out of character. The proposed design would be in keeping with the Tresco vernacular, which would respect the local distinctiveness. The proposed materials would include timber cladding, painted timber windows and doors, and natural slate tiled roofs, which would be appropriate in terms of the island's character. The proposal would respect the landscape and historic character. It would not result in harm to neighbouring occupiers or to protected species subject to compliance with a number of recommended conditions. There are no concerns regarding flooding, access, water or drainage. For the reasons stated and set out in the agenda reports, the application is considered acceptable. Subject to the conditions set out in the application is recommended for approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, so this is just replacing what's already existing. Is it the same amount of occupants in the new building?
So there are 11 double rooms, so they could provide 22 bed spaces, so they could occupy couples. So it is less rooms, but the rooms are are capable of occupying more people, if you see what I mean.
Okay, and fabric of the building is much more improved than what already exists. So
yeah, that's right.
Okay, and there's the bat survey that was in terms of biodiversity enhancement. There was existing bats in the property.
Yeah, so let me just look at that. So the assessment recognised that the development provided opportunities for biodiversity enhancements. We've got a condition requiring those, and the BAT assessment identified that it supported a day roost. So there are a number of recommendations set out within the report that we would want the applicant to follow. But we're sort of satisfied that protected species are sort of covered by the application.
Brilliant, Philip. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's a good plan to update an existing facility for staff. So I would propose the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Roger.
I would second the recommendation. This was not fit for purpose 20 years ago when I managed the Island Hotel, so I'm sure it's long overdue and the staff will be very grateful for the upgraded accommodation.
Thank you very much. We have a proposer and seconder for approval of the application. All those in favour, please. It's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, Philippa. The second planning application, item 9 on our agenda, is St Mary's Hospital. That's in the hands of Stella. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. You will have seen that there is an addendum report for this item, which sets out a number of updates which relate to additional technical, ecological and archaeological information that was submitted by the applicant following publication of the committee report. To be clear, there are no amendments to the application itself. So in terms of archaeology, an amended written scheme of investigation was submitted that now includes the area of land that will be used to provide this drainage run. The council's archaeologist has advised that the amended information is acceptable. In terms of ecology, a bat presence absence survey was carried out on the 11th of April, which found that no bats were present. The recommended mitigation strategy is that a repeat survey should be carried out prior to the commencement of any demolition works, and that work should proceed in line with a precautionary method of working to ensure bats are protected during construction. The council's ecologist has advised that this approach is acceptable. Because a bat survey has now been carried out, the outstanding ecological matters have now been addressed. Therefore, as set out in the addendum report, the officer's recommendation is that the application be approved rather than the final decision being delegated to the Chief Planning Officer, pending resolution of ecological matters. Conditions 3 and 7 have also been updated to reflect the updated archaeological and ecological reports. Can I also please draw members' attention to condition 3, Roman numeral 19, at Appendix A of the addendum report. So this is standard in that it restricts working hours on site to 8 till 6 p.m. on Mondays to Saturdays inclusive, and for new work to be undertaken on Sundays, bank holidays and public holidays for the purposes of protecting neighbouring amenities. The applicant has asked whether members could consider relaxing the condition to allow work on any day between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m, including Sundays and bank holidays. This is due to the need to complete groundworks before the arrival of the modular units in September and the practical and financial implications of sending the workforce home at weekends. So I'll now move into describing the proposal to members, which is set out in the committee report. But to summarise, the application defaults to full council for determination as it falls within the category of major development. Permission is sought to extend the existing hospital building to provide a care home facility to replace Park House and 2 new wards for the main hospital use. A separate planning application has been made on the adjoining Circus Field site for the temporary storage of materials during construction, which is at a relatively early stage of consideration. The works include the demolition of 2 single-storey extensions and 2 outbuildings on the southeastern side elevation of the existing hospital building, and the erection of 2 new parallel single-storey wings to the southwestern or rear elevation. In total, there will be 12 new care home beds and 8 new hospital beds. The ground floor of the existing hospital will be reconfigured to provide a more efficient layout for existing services, including the relocation of the maternity ward to within the main building. New amenity space and landscaping will be provided to the north of the new extensions, and a refuse and collection point will be provided near the entrance on Hospital Road. A number of ecological enhancements, including native planting, bat and bird boxes, are also proposed. And submitted BMG metric indicates that there will be an overall biodiversity net gain in excess of 10%. In principle, support for a new integrated health and social care facility is provided by policy SS4 of the local plan. The development will be prominent in some views, however, is considered acceptable in terms of visual impacts when weighed against the public benefits that will be derived. The scheme will broadly conserve the landscape, seascape and scenic beauty of this part of the AONB, and it will preserve the character of the conservation area and heritage coast and the setting of Buzzer Tower. The development will utilise modern methods of construction in the form of off-site fabricated modules which are energy efficient. Air source heat pumps will replace the existing oil-filled boilers, and PV panels will provide on-site renewable energy source. Water saving measures are also proposed, and all these measures are secured by condition 10. Surface water is proposed to be discharged to the sea via partially open channels, some of which will be stored in a rainwater tank for the use of allotment users. Details of sustainable drainage measures and their ongoing management are secured by conditions 8 and 9. The proposal is also acceptable in terms of ecology, archaeology and neighbouring amenities, subject to conditions to secure measures to protect bats, archaeological site investigations and construction and waste management plans. It is therefore recommended the application be approved, subject to the conditions set out at Appendix A of the addendum report, and that members delegate to the Chief Planning Officer any minor changes required to those conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much indeed, Stella. Councillor Marcus, please.
Thank you. Yeah, great. It's good to finally see this plan in front of us in terms of getting planning from permission for it. The public benefit of the plan is going to be immeasurable, I think. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't have some questions about the plan and how that is going to impact the environment and the service for the people, for the community. It's been a really quick process, and I'm grateful to the funders and the staff that have worked on that process and got it to this situation where we are now. A couple of questions I've got are about the drainage plan. That is, the proposal is that's delegated to the Chief Planning Officer to approve. Is that correct?
Yes, oh, big pardon.
I was just going to say, when we deal with discharge of conditions, yeah, we deal with them under delegated authority.
Okay, because it's quite, from what I can see on the documents, it's quite a open plan at the moment. They haven't quite committed to anything yet. There's ideas of storage tanks and open ditches and things like that, but there's nothing concrete. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we need to get external advice on the appropriateness of the drainage, then we can do that.
Okay, brilliant. Because that bit of the coast is quite crumbly.
Yeah.
And it's quite movable at the moment. The other question I'd like to throw open to members, because it's up to members, is about the working hours. I believe the normal working hours for every other planning application is Monday to Friday, 8 till 6, and then Saturday, 8 till 1.
We've actually changed that condition, so it's just Monday to Saturday, 8 till 6,
Okay.
and not on a Sunday or public holiday, in line with our standard timing for construction condition.
Okay, because
They've asked if they can, if we can be more flexible and allow them to work on a Sunday and public holiday if they need to.
Okay. I'm happy to throw it open to other members and have a discussion about the working time stuff towards the end of the discussion.
Thank you very much. As mentioned earlier, when we were dealing with declarations of interest, we have got declarations of interest from Councillor Mumford, our Chair of Scrutiny, and also our Vice Chairman, Francis Grottick. However, I am accepting that they can speak to this item if they so wish, but they will need to leave the chamber before a vote is taken. So on that basis, Councillor Mumford. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an opportunity to get a much needed new care home. It may not be the one we envisaged a few years ago, but it is an opportunity for the islands. Some people are worried about design, e.g. the rooms not having a sea view, not all of them anyway. And I think the parking is a little bit of a problem, but we need a new care home. Park House is, as we've been told, not fit for purpose. It is being given a makeover, but isn't it better to have better rooms, all with private bathrooms, good spacious lounge? In the future, integrated staff, which of course will be carefully negotiated, taking into consideration the staff's comments, etc. I'm quite happy for any hiccups to be delegated to the planning officer and would recommend all recommendations. Going to the working hours, I don't know where we are quite with that, but if they were to work on a Sunday or a Saturday, maybe sort of 10 o'clock till 4 on a Sunday, and 8 till 4 maybe on a Saturday. Hopefully the weather is fine and most visitors would be out on the off islands. Going back to a sea view, I don't know how important that is, because when somebody is in a residential home, they're not particularly interested in looking outside, as I found with my husband. Parking, I think there is parking space around the hospital, so evening people might be able to park in there. I think you just have to see as it goes, and if there's a problem, then maybe we'll have to think of putting some parking somewhere else, maybe beyond that. But I do think that this is an opportunity that we must take. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mumford. Councillor Grottick.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge the tremendous amount of work that has been undertaken by all team colleagues, with a special note and thanks to Debbie Richards, the Chief Executive of the Cornwall Partnership Trust, and to Derek Thomas, our MP, who've worked tirelessly on these plans. These improved facilities will, as the lead member for adults has said, hopefully be of great benefit to our community for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Market in one respect when he talks about it being a quick process, but arguably it's been 20 years or so, 20 years, quarter of a century to get here. So the bit we're looking at is related to a quick process, but overall we've got, as Councillor Bedford says, quarter of a century of work to get to this point. I obviously support the application. It's a key part of our corporate plan. It's investment in our island future. It's investment in our infrastructure. It's all that we as members look for. I agree with Councillor Mumford. There are compromises. There's I feel some lost opportunities in terms of the design and layouts, but I can live with those. Slightly disappointed we've had really no public consultation feedback from the plans and designs for something quite as significant as major as we've got here. The water drainage issue seems all a bit too vague for my liking. Just sending it over a cliff into the sea doesn't fill me with a huge amount of confidence, and I'd have more confidence if the Allotment Association had had some more consultation on the wording. But overall, I support the work that's taken place. I welcome the investment which is flowing into the islands, and wish all the partners good luck in bringing it in on time and budget.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. Councillor Bedford, please.
Thank you. I am, 25 years I've been working at this, as we all know. I have two material considerations about this project though. The first one is the environment and the second one is parking. The report states the proposals will have a significant visual change in an undeveloped coastal area. It will impact on the land use. And with parking, there's no parking spaces apart from the 4 that are already there. I've asked myself this question again and again. Does this development have wider community benefits which outweigh the two material considerations I am concerned about? Well, of course, we know Park House infrastructure is not fit for purpose for the level of care that people that go into residential care home now require. But what is really missing from this, and which is what I find quite upsetting, is with the proposal, we are actually replacing like for like with Park House beds to this potentially this new unit. And I have to ask myself is how does that benefit outweigh what we're doing to the environment? Well, of course, if you are a person that wants to remain on Scilly and your care needs are complexed, they will finally be met, hopefully, on St Mary's, and you will not have to go away. So, of course, they outweigh the environmental needs. I really get that. What I don't get is the total lack of the joined up picture. There's nothing about extra care. There's no strategy with the council about the overall benefit to the community. This is just one part of a picture that we have to look at. We are looking in the future about housing developments all around St Mary's, but none of it is about extra care housing. And this being my bread and butter for 45 years, if you ask people, they always say, I want to stay in my own home. And that is the first choice that we should be giving people. Yes, we will need a residential and nursing care home. And I'm actually emphasising the nursing bit, not the residential bit, because in my experience, people's complex needs are so great now. It's not purely about one condition, maybe like dementia. They may have multiple conditions that really make it quite challenging to provide the care that they require. I actually think it's barking not having parking space. I really do. You know, you've got 4 there. You know, I walk past that hospital quite a bit. There's cars always parked outside those 2 holiday lets at Buzzer Rock. One of them's been abandoned there for months and going green. But parking will be important unless we look at the whole picture and say, well, actually, maybe we need a community bus that serves this facility and that is all the year round. If we're not going to have parking, we have to have an option for people to be able to get to the hospital or the care home or the health centre or whatever. So I do find the parking, why that was, the drainage had been mentioned, and that was something that I was quite worried about. Can we just go back to 19? Now, the proposal asks for the they want to have the option to work on Sundays. If we are going to go for that option, what they're saying is just for the development work. So that would be only for 4 or 5 weeks. I would be opposed to anything longer than that because we have had one representation from the person that owns Peninis Farm. And although he's very supportive of the project, he is quite worried that there will be building outside of what is normal for the islands. We have got the museum project going ahead. They are keeping within that time frame that we have given them, based on the fact they also need to support the well-being of their staff. And so if we are talking about the option to work on a Sunday, can we make that limited to maybe just 4 Sundays or 5 Sundays while the development work is going on? I also take, you know, I agree with Avril's point about people don't necessarily want to view when they get into a care home. They want to be cared for well, they want to be valued, they want to feel they have purpose, and they want to have a sense of being. And the fact that they haven't got a view has never been an issue when I have been involved with the care of people. But overall, yes, well done. Thank you. 25 years, you know, and I think it's really well. But there are just a few couple of material considerations that I have concerns about.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Yes, thank you. I have an issue with the drainage, that's all really, because I had to take the dogs over to the beach below the allotments quite a lot, and masses of that clip has come in this year, has fallen in this year, so I would like the drainage looked at thoroughly, but overall I support the recommendations and I would like to propose them all. And also the sea view thing, obviously it's nice to have a sea view, but if sea views were essential for care homes, there won't be a single care home in the Midlands. It's a slightly spurious thing to bring up.
Thank you very much. Councillor Legg, please.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with a lot of the comments that have been said, especially around drainage. It would be really good to get that right. We did work recently with the Adaptive Sillies project, looking at delaying rainwater runoff for a controlled release to then have a project with quite a large expanse of roofing area and not delay that drainage would be daft. As for sea views, yeah, it's clear that it's not essential to someone's care. My feeling is that it's a missed opportunity to not take advantage of it. I do not have 25 years of experience working in such a facility. I have 2 experiences of being there. One for the birth of someone who is now a very good friend of mine, and the other was my grandmother who was there in her final days. And neither of those people could see or make use of the view, but both of them were comforted by the fact that their home of St Agnes was visible out of the window, and to remove that ability, or not take advantage of it, is a shame. And I'm not suggesting any changes, and I wouldn't hinder these plans at all. I'm very grateful for them. I just think it's a missed opportunity, and one that perhaps in 50 years time I may be lucky enough to get one of those 2 end rooms with the view. Yeah, put that on the record. Happy to continue.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dean, please.
I probably won't be around in 50 years time, so hopefully I'll be there a bit sooner than you, Harry, but and get one of those rooms. Yeah, I think it's all been said. I think what we have to, to oversimplify it probably is to, accept that Park House is not fit for purpose and hasn't been fit for purpose for quite a long time, and this is an opportunity to get a fit for purpose building that meets those needs. I totally take on board what Councillor Bedford said about a more rounded view of care in the community and assisted living, if that's the correct term, and this intermediate bit between independent living and ending up in a residential care home. So I think that's definitely something we should talk about more and come up with a plan there. The drainage has already been mentioned. I would urge the Chief Planning Officer to be very diligent in ensuring that is done to an acceptable standard. As has been said, that bit of the coastline is very vulnerable anyway. As for the Sunday working, I don't have a problem with the Monday to Saturday 8 till 6. I do have an issue with Sunday working. I think Sundays are very special here. We don't have any flying, or very rarely have any flying. We mostly don't have any ferry services on a Sunday, and it's quite a special thing, I think, for this community to be quiet and remote for one day of the week. And I would be very reluctant to allow certainly heavy plant to be used on a Sunday, particularly when you think of where it is. And the most popular beach on St Mary's is Porth Cressa, and the noise would undoubtedly echo around Porth Cressa Bay. So I wouldn't support Sunday working, but I'm more than happy to support the application and happy to propose it if no one else has. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Roger, please.
Yeah, just I'd like Councillor Legg endorse the vast majority of all the comments made. The investment is welcome and should be grasped with open arms and gratitude. I just wanted to pick up on the Sunday thing again. I agree with Councillor Dean and Councillor Bedford. I'm loath to allow Sunday development work on Sunday. I think it would set a precedent. We might get other plan applications that are currently starting, might try and change their existing conditions if we set a precedent here. There is perhaps an argument to allow, as Councillor Bedford has said, a few Sundays in order to get the ball rolling in an efficient manner, and I certainly would be happy to consider that, but certainly not Sundays for the whole period of the.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of comments. Something that Councillor Williams alluded to a few minutes ago about the Allotments Association. We haven't actually been consulted at all. And I did check with Simon Mansell a few days ago whether I should have declared an interest, because I'm chairman of the Allotments Association. But he told me that the association is once removed from the application, there will be no need at this point to declare an interest. But one point that has come up from other tenants of the Allotments Association is, why should the rainwater be run off? Why not store it for environmental reasons and then use it internally? So that's a question perhaps for later, not for now. But an interesting point, and I agree with the comments on Sunday working. And Councillor Dean mentioned, and when I was tourism officer, it was always part of our selling point that Sunday was a special part of Scilly, and I think it still is. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
Just to clarify, no one has proposed a recommendation to amend the working hours. So Councillor Dean's proposed recommendations, I'm happy to second that. If anyone wants to change those working hours, you need to propose a recommendation.
Councillor Williams.
There seems to be enough discussion around the table this morning to at least consider the vote. So I'm happy to propose we exclude Sunday from the working hours just to see how it floats.
Is there a seconder for that amendment, please? Councillor Bedford. All those in favour of that amendment, please. Yeah.
Chair.
Sorry.
Can I? It's not.
Yeah, I am not taking the main. I'm sorry. I'm just covering the amendment.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it's the proposal. My words have gone. The conditions. Yeah, the conditions already exclude Sundays and bank holidays. So that's in the conditions, the existing conditions.
Sorry, just one moment, Nicola.
So just for clarification, just while we're sorting ourselves out, the condition reads currently no working to be undertaken on the site except between the hours of 8 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening, Mondays to Fridays inclusive, 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock on Saturdays. No working to be undertaken on Sundays, bank or public holidays. That's in the recommendation as it stands.
Raise my hand.
That what you're after? That's the wording you're after.
So the amended, the second condition, the updated papers say Monday to Saturday, 8 till 6. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So that's what we're voting on, Monday to Saturday, 8 till 6. The usual conditions are Monday to Friday, 8 till 6, Saturday, 8 till 1.
Yeah. So just for clarification as well, the town hall conditions, there'll be 8 till 6 Monday to Friday, 8 till 2 on a Saturday. So you might want to mirror that.
Well, that's not for this meeting. Let's deal with this meeting and
these conditions here.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, we have an amendment that is proposed for working on Monday to Saturday inclusive from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And sorry?
And bank holidays as
well.
And
bank holidays. So,
and bank, so excluding bank holidays, going round and round in circles.
Okay. So Monday days p.m. to 6 p.m. Excluding bank holidays and Sundays. Yeah, I said Monday to Saturday inclusive. So we have a proposer for that, which is Councillor Dean. Is that right? And sorry, is Councillor Williams? The
Sorry,
seconder,
Chair. The application, the proposal here is for, approve the plans and work Monday to Saturday, 8 till 6, excluding Sundays and bank holidays. So I've proposed that. We don't need an amendment unless somebody wants to amend that to something else, which I don't think Councillor Williams wanted to do.
No.
No, so it's just the proposal.
That's fine. So you have proposed the
The application,
recommendations.
yes.
And who has seconded the recommendations, please? Councillor Marcus. Councillor Legg, you wanted to speak.
So just to be clear, we're allowing the museum work to work for an extra hour more than this project.
No, we're not dealing with that at the moment.
No, but
They're 8 till 2.
They're 8 till 2, and we're saying 8 till 1.
6.
No, we're 8 till 6.
Okay.
8 till 6.
No, it's fine. They got.
Okay, it's just in my papers.
Yeah, it's the new
So we did
amended.
We are agreeing. Okay, I think I've caught up with everyone else.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we have a proposer and seconder. All those in favour of approval of the application and the two recommendations. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Sorry. Yeah, and I would like to thank everybody for their hard work and trying to get this through in the timescale that that has been allotted to us. I'd like to thank Lucy Bell very much for her support in all this, and to our planning team for getting this dealt with and through in such good time. So it's a great result, and thank you all very much indeed. So we move on now to item 12, to item 10 even on our agenda, which is our enforcement update in the hands of our Chief Planning Officer, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. So this report is to update members on the enforcement investigations that took place during 2023. As you'll note from the report, the work was threefold, but primarily focusing on breaches of planning in relation to housing, which took the bulk of the time. The consultants did also look at issues associated with the various covenants attached to ex-council homes and have been purchased through right to buy. Some guidance has been produced in connection with vacant homes in terms of powers associated with vacant possession and compulsory purchase, and a report and notes have been provided to officers on those. For the planning enforcement investigations, you will note that whilst some cases we've considered closed, there remain a number of cases where further work is required to establish a suitable course of action. Based on the levels of harm identified, however, this is likely to be invitations to regularise or secure certificates of lawfulness. Finally, the consultants carried out a review of the enforcement charter and have made some recommendations to update this document and to streamline and prioritise enforcement work. As part of this, officers have provided a page on the council's website where a form is now required to raise an enforcement complaint. In order to improve planning enforcement, members are asked to support a public consultation on the draft enforcement plan, which was attached at Appendix A a day or two later in the main agenda. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for a good summary of where we are now. It's been an interesting process the last 18 months, 12 months going through the enforcement project. Am I right in thinking we are now doing this in-house rather than employing, commissioning external consultants to help us with this? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and in terms of results, can you summarise again, sorry, the results that the enforcement?
Yeah, I mean, planning enforcement is a really slow process. We write to people, we carry out site visits, We establish what we think the facts are, and then we suggest a course of action. In most cases, we've invited people to regularise their uses, their changes of uses. The only one has been actually regularised and got planning permission to split their property into two. There's been a delay in people coming forward to regularise actually what we've suggested that they need to regularise.
How would you suggest we overcome that delay?
I did a separate kind of summary paper where I can go through it with members in terms of courses of action. Most of them is to rewrite people, to remind them it's in their interest to regularise their uses. It then becomes a question: do we want to take enforcement action?
Okay, because if amendments to people's properties aren't regularised and they come to dispose of those properties, they're going to have to do it then rather than now anyway, aren't they? So
it is always framed as it's in their interests. It's usually the level of harm we identify is not so significant. There's a disparity in terms of when people ask us for planning permission and they're told one message, when planning permission is refused, and then versus those people who then just do development either without asking, they didn't know, or they just knew and thought they could get away with it. So there's a disparity between and a consistency in terms of planning and fairness. So it's usually framed in terms of it's in a property owner's interest, because when they come to sell it, a purchaser wants the correct paperwork that this is, they're not going to be faced with enforcement themselves.
okay.
Thank you. Councillor Bedford, please.
Thank you, Lisa. I imagine this is quite a difficult piece of work because we're just a small community and everybody knows everyone. What are the main regulations issues, please? There's about 8 here that haven't been regularised. What do they need to regularise?
The changes of use mainly. So some of them have been operating guest houses, inviting them if they've been doing it for sufficiently long enough. It's certificates of lawful use, and inviting them if they haven't. There's a couple of examples where we've suggested they apply for planning permission to regularise, but on a personal basis. So they've been running a guest house. They can regularise that for themselves. When they come to sell the property, it reverts back to being a single property.
Are these mainly the ones that were 106s then?
Yeah.
I understand that. What also worried about is where there's no specific landscape harm to the landscape or amenity, isn't that the role of your planning application to say if there's a specific risk? And I just think it's almost retrospect all the time, isn't it? And I feel quite uncomfortable with that. If you know what I mean, that's what we have planning regulations for, that you go to a plan and you put it in. And then here we're saying, well, there was no specific landscape or amenity harm. Well, so you should have gone into planning.
I totally agree. It is just, that's just a kind of informal view. So as a planning officer, experienced planning officer, that's the kind of view we look at it and go, nobody's really complaining about this. Nobody's noticed. How harmful can it be? So it is just an informal view. It's advising somebody it's unlikely. We don't ever say to them, you're definitely going to get planning permission or you're definitely not going to get planning permission. We've just taken a view that if people aren't telling us that this is causing them a problem in terms of noise or disturbance or something in the landscape that's causing harm, then we take the view that generally it's probably not causing a significant problem.
Do you think that's because we're a small island, a small community, and neighbours doesn't want to shop neighbours and cause trouble?
Yeah, possibly, yeah. So there is that degree of...
What happens now, though, to the ones if they don't regularise? What's the next step? Because it's quite a lengthy period, you said, to keep on banging at their door, isn't it? Or doors.
Yeah. Right. So if someone just fails to not do anything and not respond, it's up to the council. If we think it needs an enforcement notice to be served, so we can either impose conditions, draw a line in the sand for future certificates of lawful use, for example, then then we can serve an enforcement notice. We don't have to take it further, but it draws a line in the sand for future sales of that property. It's a land charge that the next purchaser then becomes aware there's an enforcement notice on the property.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sims, please.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. I'm happy to propose both recommendations. I just think it's a shame that the recommendations are quite bland. I'd like to be more effusive because this has been something that's been bubbling away probably since before I was born, and it needs to be done. And as you said, hopefully it will put a red line down for the future. I think this is as much about the future as sorting out these issues into the past. So, as I said, I'm very happy to propose the recommendations, and thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. I think, from my point of view, I mean, really welcome this work. We've talked about planning enforcement for years, and actually, I think hopefully this has kick-started enforcement into action. Say you're going to deal with it in-house going forward. Is that, I know we've invested quite a lot of time and effort into this. Is that going to be doable, I suppose, is the question?
It will. It is slow, honestly. It is a slow process, and it is fitting in. It tends to get more when people complain about things. That prompts us. We have due regard to what people are telling us and respond to those and investigate. And we do get legal advice, so we don't just think it through ourselves. When we want to serve a notice, when we want to serve a planning contravention notice, serve an enforcement notice, we will get some legal advice to make sure.
I just think it's important now we've started doing this enforcement that we don't drop the bat on and we keep going. And if there's some budgetary requirements needed going forward, then we need to bring that up when we're talking about the budget for next year. So there's that. There's one other little question I wanted to ask, which is about the compulsory purchase of empty properties. Where are we with that? Because there are, as we all know, a number of empty properties on.
I honestly didn't get too involved in that side of things because those powers of this council sit with our environmental health colleagues. So a report has been done, and I know that they do an annual review to understand what the numbers are in terms of vacant properties. So, do you want to come in on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way in which we can use those powers is quite restricted, and it's quite time consuming as well. We've reviewed the ones that are empty, and we can't really use those notices at this stage. What's been really beneficial in this process, though, is it's brought to the fore what we'd have to do if we were in a position, what are the circumstances when we could use those powers, what are the templates for the papers that need to be served, and I think it's the same for the enforcement side. The template and the procedures are now much clearer. So in the circumstances where we can take action, it will be quicker in the future because we understand those processes much better, having had this work done by Ivy Legal. So we've reviewed what we've got in terms of both right to buys and empty properties, and at this point in time, there's not an appropriate, method or requirement at this stage. But it certainly means that in the future we've got much better knowledge, much better processes, and the templates in place ready to go if we need to.
Lovely, thank you very much. As I say, I'm happy to second the proposal. So, to me, done.
Thank you very much. I have a proposer and seconder for the recommendations. All those in favour, please. That's passed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Lisa, for all the work involved. Move on now to item 11 on our agenda, which is the Isles of Scilly transport links in the hands of Nigel Blackler, our Major Projects Director. Thank you, Nigel.
Apologies for that. Thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning, members. If I may, I'd like to just start by summarising the report that we're presenting to you today. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be here in person to do that. At your full council meeting on the 19th of March, the Chairman gave notice to you of our intention to bring a report on the Aldersley Sea Links project to this meeting. I'm very pleased to be here to do that today. This report formally records the decision by the government to withdraw the levelling up funding allocated to deliver the new vessels to provide sea link services in favour of a private sector-led approach. It then sets out the options members need to consider in responding to this decision and what the role of the council should now play in achieving resilient, reliable and affordable transport services which meet the needs of the community, businesses and visitors to the Isles of Scilly. The report has 4 recommendations and the report is structured around those 4 recommendations. The first of which relates to the withdrawal of the levelling up funding. The report sets out the communications and correspondence leading up to the withdrawal of that levelling up funding, and it charts that from the last full report that you received on the project back in on the 16th of November 2023. And the exchange of correspondence since then, which has been summarised in Appendix A and takes you right the way through to the key letters that we received from government, from the 2 government departments responsible, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities and the Department for Transport, confirming that the withdrawal of levelling up funding allocation. It's important in considering those 2 letters informing us of this decision that both departments also stated that they remain committed to working with the council to tackle the challenges facing the island community. And I think we need to bear that in mind in considering how the council wants to proceed in the future. So recommendation 1 of this report proposes that members note the announcement by the Isles of Scilly Steamship Group that the company has signed contracts for the delivery of 2 of the 3 new vessels using private finance and the response from the government in withdrawing the levelling up funding previously allocated to the council for this purpose. The report then moves on to the second recommendation, and I'll summarise the background to that now. And that following the withdrawal of levelling up funding, it's important that the council has a good understanding of all the transport services that commercial operators will be providing. This will allow the council to make informed decisions on what, if any, action needs to be taken to ensure the islands has resilient, reliable and affordable transport services in the future which meet the needs of the community, businesses and visitors to the islands. In this respect, sea links between the mainland and the islands, the council received requests from both the Isles of Scilly Steamship Group and Harland and Wolff to be able to present to members their plans for future service provision. Very grateful to the chairman of the council's scrutiny committee for arranging a special meeting to allow the operators to come forward and present their proposals for not only this year but for subsequent years. Copies of those presentations are attached to this report at Appendix B. And we also took the opportunity to record the meeting, and I'm very grateful to Tom Walton for arranging for that to take place so that we have a full record of that meeting, which is available for the public to hear and understand on the council's website. The 2 presentations confirm that there are going to be considerable changes to Sea Link services in the short term, which could extend to other aspects of transport services the islands rely on year round. The 2 operators are already running competing freight services between the mainland and the islands, and both confirm they have plans to increase the capacity of their operations through the introduction of additional vessels in the future. It was also clear from the information provided at the Scrutiny Committee that after many months of speculation, competition will extend to include passenger service from as early as May this year. Beg your pardon. It is therefore proposed in the report that members note the presentations and responses provided by the Steamship Group and the Harland and Wolff at the Council Scrutiny Committee on the 20th of March. And again, take this information into account when deciding on how the Council should proceed in the future. The third aspect of the report, the third recommendation, relates to a public petition regarding the sea-link services, and so is therefore relevant. The Chairman of the Council informed members at a meeting of full Council on the 16th of November 2023 that a public petition campaigning for an affordable transport sea service to the Isles of Scilly was expected to be submitted to the Council in due course. It was indeed submitted to the Council formally on the 29th of January 2024, and a summary page is attached of the petition as it appears online. It was a petition that was run online. This petition has been checked and confirmed by the monitoring officer that it complies with the Council's petition scheme. Now, members will see from the appendix attached the exact wording of the petition, which campaigns for cost-effective and reliable travel and freight to the islands. And it goes on to say, we need government intervention to safeguard the islands and its future now. At the time of writing this report, the petition had attracted 2,472 signatures. However, this, in terms of getting the government to respond to a petition with that number of signatures, it does not meet the 10,000 signatures required for a petition to receive a response from government. So in order to increase the likelihood of the petition being considered and a response received by the operators from the government, it is proposed that the Council submit the petition on their behalf. The report therefore recommends at recommendation 3 that members accept the petition from residents and visitors to the Isles of Scilly seeking government intervention to ensure cost-effective and reliable travel and freight services, and that it be submitted to the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities and the Secretary of State for Transport, and also the local constituency MP for their consideration. Now, we've put this forward to you today, and I'm not asking or recommending in the report that members take a view on what the petition is setting out to achieve, because the petition is as is drafted, requesting a response from government, not from the Council. However, if it was submitted direct to government as is by the organisers, it falls short of the number of signatures required. By the Council accepting it and submitting it to government, and with our established history, with these two respective government departments, we think there is a greater chance that the petition will be considered and those organising the petition will get a response back from the government formally on the points that they're putting across. So the Council is very much here in a sort of receiving and forwarding position in order to increase the likelihood of this petition receiving a response from government. I then move on to the final recommendation, recommendation 4 of the report, which relates to the future role of the Council in the future, given that the Levelling Up funding has been withdrawn and effectively the Levelling Up project has been brought to a conclusion. And the report sets out that members have 3 options to consider here. One is to challenge the government's decision to withdraw Levelling Up funding allocation. The second is to request the government takes on full responsibility for ensuring that the island's transport needs are met in the future. And the third recommendation, the third option is to continue to work with government, transport operators, harbour and airport authorities and other stakeholders to ensure the transport needs of the islands are met in the future. The report then goes on to consider those 3 options which are available to you and concludes that the fact that the Council has no direct responsibility for the provision of transport services other than the running of the airport means that it is well placed to monitor the services provided and work with transport operators, harbour and airport authorities and other stakeholders to determine what further service improvements are required and how they can be delivered. This would include the Council continuing to work with government departments and the appropriate regulatory bodies to ensure all operators are given the same opportunity to provide the transport services the islands need in the future. Now, the role that the Council can take is different from that which we've had up until now and over the last 2 years since the Levelling Up funding was announced. We would no longer be accountable body for Levelling Up funding because that's been withdrawn, but we would move to have a responsibility to effectively monitor the services we need and then measure those against the needs of the community, businesses and visitors to the islands. And that role is summarised in Appendix D. It needs further development, but that is an initial sort of summary of what this role that the Council could perform would look like. Now, in undertaking that role, we have no resources upon which to fulfil those activities, and therefore it would be dependent on resources being made available from government. So you need to be minded of that requirement when considering this recommendation. So recommendation 4 therefore proposes that, subject to the resources being confirmed by government, members approve the Council continue to work with transport operators, harbour and airport authorities and other stakeholders to pursue the objectives set out in its original Levelling Up bid in order to create resilient, reliable and affordable transport services which meet the needs of the community, businesses and visitors to the Isles of Scilly. You'll note from my introduction that I've regularly used that terminology of resilient, reliable, affordable transport services and the importance of meeting the needs of community, businesses and visitors, because I believe that is key to our future role in respect of transport. We are uniquely placed to be able to represent the needs of transport users and to make sure that the services that we received are measured against those needs. And if they fall short of that, where do they fall short? We need to challenge those who are providing those services to improve or increase the extent of, or and any other aspect of that. And if it is not possible to see those improvements put in place, then we still have and have established good links with government where we can continue to discuss what further support we require in the future to make sure that those needs are met, properly recognised and are met by government in whatever form is most appropriate. I hope that's a helpful summary of the report I've put before you today. It's quite a lengthy report, but this is a really important subject and something that we wanted to make sure that you have all the information before you today so that you can take a key decision as to what role the Council plays in the future. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Chairman, I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Extremely helpful. Councillor Sims, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nigel. It's a very fulsome report. And essentially, I think from the island's perspective, we are in the same situation we were now in I don't even know what year it was now, 2021, when Levelling Up was first suggested, was that we're actually in the same situation now. At that point, it was universally accepted by all parties that the route would not support recapitalisation of new vessels if paid for internally. One of the parties has certainly moved away from that, but nobody else has, and I don't think the situation has changed. And so I think we're presented with the situation now. If we get the new vessels as it's expected, it's going to be a millstone around the island next for years and years and years. So this situation hasn't gone away; it's going to come back, and I think that's one of the reasons why we need to maintain a presence, which needs to be resourced to keep basically plugging away at this, because the issue hasn't gone away, it will return. And I'm very happy to propose all the recommendations. I mean, I noticed in the options, option A, challenge the government's decision to withdraw the Levelling Up funding. Well, I don't think that's really going to cut much ice. They're going to say, well, we absolutely did every single thing we conceivably could to get this over the line, and it was turned when we were turned away. So that's not going to happen. But certainly B and C, an amalgam of those, and B being request that the government takes responsibility to ensure the island's transport needs are met in future. and C, to continue to work with the government, transport operators, harbour and airport authorities and other stakeholders to ensure the transport needs of the islands are met in the future. So I think an amalgam of those two is the way forward. Yeah, so thank you very much for the report, and I'm very happy to propose all the recommendations. And also regarding the petition, I think it's we've got low cohort here now. Myself and Vice Chair of Council checked the residential qualifications of the vast numbers of people who'd actually signed the petition. I think it was about 130 definites and a few indeterminates. So that was well over 5% of the population of the islands. In fact, if it was a nationwide one, it'd be 3 or 4 million people who would have signed the petition. And then you've got another 2,300 presumably visitors who didn't check their emails. Why would you? But obviously you got an interest in it. So given the cohort and the number of people who use the services, and it's a very, very well subscribed petition. And on that basis, I think it's what's the word? It's the right thing for the council to present it, as Nigel said, because if the government just sees the numbers, they're not going to touch it. It means nothing to them. But if we present it to the government, then perhaps they take note of it. So, yeah. So I very much approve of all the recommendations, and over to anybody else.
Thank you. Councillor Bedford, please.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Steve. I'm in disagreement with you, as you will probably know is coming. Nigel, can you tell me what note means? You've got in recommendation 1 and 2. I'm at a loss to what note means, what we meant to do with note, please. Someone turn the light out.
Thank you, Councillor Bedford. Yes, in taking the key decisions in the report, particularly in respect of the 4th recommendation, the Council's future role, I'm asking for members to take into account the position that the Council now finds itself in terms of the withdrawal levelling up funding. So that is why I'm asking you to note that information. This is the first time effectively since the letters were received from the 2 ministers that you formally met to consider the responses from government. So I'm asking you to note those that correspondence and the decisions contained within it. And similarly, in taking your decision as to how the council should go forward, now that it's no longer accountable body for a levelling up project, and it's not a local transport authority as defined by other local authorities, you have a key decision to take here in terms of what role, how proactive you want to be in the future in representing transport needs. So you also need to take into account, I think, what we're expecting to see in terms of the transport services, not just in this coming year, but in future years, from what we're now seeing is 2 sea link operators and 2 air operators, and providing the transport services upon which the islands rely. So I wanted to specifically make sure, which is why I'm asking you to note it again, the positions of those respective sea link operators as presented to the scrutiny committee and the information that's contained here. So I want to place on public record you've taken those 2 bodies of evidence into account in arriving at your final decision on recommendation 4.
I'm still not sure what I meant to do on that, but thank you. You said about the presentation from one of the operators, and it's really good news to hear that they're starting in May, and it says in the presentation. My understanding is that they're not now. They have withdrawn all their May booking opportunities. The other thing I'm really worried about is about the petition. I understand where it's coming from, and absolutely this island needs a resilient, affordable, sustainable transport link. I want to go and see my family. I want my family to come here. I want to be able to afford to live here. But I'm really unhappy with the wording of this petition. I think it's actually quite well, defamatory in some ways. It is saying that the current vessels operated by the Isles of Scilly Steamship Group have reached their end of their working lives. I don't actually know that they've ended their working lives. They're actually working. They're actually coming back and forth. They are reaching the end, which is why probably we've had the levelling up and the years of all that. But I'm quite unhappy with that line, and I can't really sign up to that. What if we turn around and say, yeah, all the councillors say, yeah, the 3 boats are ending their working lives, especially the Wesleyan. How will the steamship respond to that, with the council saying that the boat that is presently in operation is at its end of its life? My understanding of the end of a working life is that you're not working anymore, that you're not operational. And so I do actually find, though the sentiments of that I understand, I do actually find the wording of this petition quite uncomfortable. And why they just couldn't have just said about the resilience and the economic without actually saying something else of what they've said, it actually makes me feel uncomfortable. And also verifying it, my understanding was there was 2,700 people that signed it, and 130 were local, but there was no way that the other 2,700 signatories could be verified. And I just wonder how it was verified if you cannot verify them. So those are my concerns.
I'd just like to come in on that and clarify the fact, Councillor Bedford, that it's not our petition. We're not, the wording of the petition is nothing to do with this council.
You're asking us to accept it.
It's been presented to this council as a petition. It's not up to us to judge it. We are accepting it.
Yeah.
We could have a petition on anything. It's not our petition. So we're not judging the wording on this petition. We are looking at whether or not we accept this petition. I'll hand over to Councillor Sims just to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah. In order for the council to accept the petition, it needed 100 local signatories. So that's why there was no point verifying the other 2,300, because there was nothing to do with the threshold for accepting it. And also, I'm not quite sure how we could have done that if we wanted to. And regarding vessels reaching the end of their lives, I think that's a direct lift from the steamship company. They've said that in the original outline business case. I mean, that's and they have. I mean, the Wesleyan reached the end of its life a couple of times. It was given dispensations. It's been put on life support by the MCA. So, whilst I can see your point there, how can a vessel that's still functioning and carrying passengers be at the end of its life? But I think it's really it's semantics, really, because if in effect that's why we need new vessels, because it has reached the end of its working life, or very, very soon will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. I really welcome this report, especially recommendation 4, which you've spoken about. My general feeling is, as a council, we probably need to start de-escalating some of the war of words that's been taking place between partners. I'm starting to feel it's not particularly helpful at this point in time. I'm living with Justine, and to a sort of extent Russell, in an Ofsted inspection world where partnership is everything. You can have the best service going, but if the partners aren't pulling the weight, then it all just comes crashing down. And I'm starting to feel that there's lessons that we can be learned from the whole aspect of partnership working, and that being a success or failure. I totally get that issues of trust and relationships are extremely damaged. That's probably, putting it politely, it's an understatement. But I just think we need just to keep calm, reflect on all aspects of the past few years. We've invested a huge amount of money and time and effort and energy and blood, sweat and tears from particularly the chair and the lead member, which I think we're grateful for. But I certainly don't think we should give up. So recommendation 4 is where I'm pitching my efforts on this. So recommendation 1 just seems to be we are where we are, and we can't really change that. And I'd agree we can challenge, but I don't think we stand a chance doing that. Recommendation 2 is arguably just propaganda from the 2 providers. We've spoken about the petition already. I think the Isles of Scilly file must be pretty colossal in terms of its depth, so I don't think it's going to change anything. So I just urge us to keep the dialogue going. And I think there's when we looked at the hospital planning application earlier in this meeting, as you've said, there's 25 years of effort gone into that. And there's been peaks and troughs. There's been times when we've been really optimistic something's going to happen. And there's been times where we've almost given up as it's dead in the water. And then from almost out of the ashes of that sort of feeling, some positive news came. So I think we should cling on to that. We should look to try and find some commonality where we've got partners who we're not getting on with. Try and find some, I don't know if we call them quick wins, whether that's too simplistic. But sort of just try and rebuild that plan, as you suggested, Nigel, in terms of that resilience and affordability. So I think we're all a bit battered and bruised, but I think we could probably just calm down, reflect and recharge our batteries and go again and try to make things better.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with any of the report. I accept what Anita's, Councillor Bedford said about the petition, but I think we're just, you know, as has been made clear, we're just receiving it and passing it on. We're not saying whether it's true or false. We're just a conduit to pass it on to government so that they look at it rather than going direct. That's my understanding. I think that's correct.
Chair, if I may come back on that point, because I think you mentioned a key word there, and I think when I was just reflecting what Councillor Bedford said and other points made there, and I looked back at my petition and I looked back at my recommendation, not my petition, my recommendation, and I thought, yeah, maybe the word accept is not the word I should have put in the recommendations. And in fact, the members receive the petition might be a better way of reflecting the fact that we're receiving something. We haven't been party to the wording of that of the terms of the petition, and therefore by receiving it and then submitting it to government, it better reflects the fact that, you know, where we as a council are not passing judgment on the words there and relating to the vessels and alike. And I'm wondering whether that changed. Not my business to recommend to you changing these, but that might be something that you wish to consider. I just felt that the way I drafted it, probably I should have used the word receive and not accept, and I apologise if that's kind of creating the impression that we are signing up to the wording. We're not. That wasn't the intention, so I apologise for that. Okay, thank you. Councillor Dean, I interrupted.
I'm happy to propose that amendment to.
I can just change my initial proposal to receive, then we don't have to do an amendment, do we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to bring up, and I take Councillor Williams's point that we need to look to the future and work with partners to try and achieve the common goal. But I do think there's a place to look back. This is the second time now that a project has failed. We had the route partnership several years ago that didn't achieve its you know, the outcome we wanted, and this again has happened now. Now I'm not suggesting that we point the finger of blame at anyone, but what I would hate for us not to do is to learn lessons from this. So when we said we were going to have the scrutiny meeting about the project, my hope was that we would do some of that looking back. That wasn't what the scrutiny meeting was about this time, but I don't know if the scrutiny is the right place for this to happen, because I think it needs someone to step away from us to look at the whole, you know, procedure that we've gone through and see if there's anything that we could have done better or our partners could have done better or whatever, just so that if the opportunity comes up again to get some funding for this crucial part of island life, that we don't make the same mistakes again. So I don't know if members would agree that we have a fifth recommendation, that there is a review of the procedure that's taken place to get us to where we are now.
Nigel?
Thank you, Councillor Dean. No, I understand entirely the point you make, and having been through the route partnership work when I was at Cornwall Council, and then what we've been through over the last 2 years, it's hugely frustrating that we haven't been able to translate those major funding opportunities as they existed back then and now into delivery of the vessels that we all want to see. and that cost is not then passed on to the users for years to come. So it is hugely frustrating for me personally and for everybody I know on the islands, and indeed the officials that I've worked with in government. I've reflected quite a lot on where we've been over the last 2.5 years on this, and yes, I believe we could undertake a review. If members want to go down that route, then my recommendation would be you need to appoint somebody independent to do that, who's not been involved in the process, who would have to come in and interview everybody who's had a role in the project, both the at official and officer level within the council, the operators if they're prepared to cooperate, and also elected members. It's quite an extensive process that you need to go through to do that properly and to come out with recommendations. I've been involved in those type of exercises before when I was at Cornwall Council, most notably at Cornwall Airport. So if you enter into that, it is quite a significant exercise that you would need to go into, in my view, to give it the weight and consideration that's required. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but you just need to be conscious of that if you want to go down that route. I would say, and I've been sort of reflecting on this, there is a certain uniqueness about what we've just been through, because this is about the Levelling Up Fund and what that was intended to achieve. Now, when that was launched in March 2021 by the government then, by the then Prime Minister, it got a lot of support. It resonated nationally with this programme that was going to tackle economic differences and driving prosperity as part of levelling up left behind regions of the UK, which is a priority for this government. I just picked that out. It's one of the lines that were used at that time by the then Prime Minister. And in the prospectus that was issued by the then Chancellor, who is now the Prime Minister, they were very keen to promote this as a major programme that was going to see investment go into areas where it was really needed. Now, the government themselves have reflected on the progress since March 2021. 3 years on, the Public Accounts Committee held an inquiry into levelling up funding to local government. And I won't go into all the details, but it came out with 6 conclusions and recommendations, the first of which they noted was that local authorities have only been able to spend so far 10% of the money that was available. So this is a problem nationally, that the ambition of levelling up is not translated through to delivery. And the Public Accounts Committee went on to take evidence to look at the reasons for that, and came out with a recommendation that we are concerned that the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities did not do enough to understand the readiness of project proposals and the challenges facing local authorities before it awarded funds. So I think nationally, the Levelling Up programme is being well supported across the country in terms of intent, but where it's really had difficulty is actually translating that through to delivery. And we were one of the flagship schemes in the first round of Levelling Up. And we were seen as demonstrating how the extent of levelling up was going to go, right all the way down to the Isles of Scilly. We were one of the largest allocations in the first round. But I think that in going into that, and with the enthusiasm and the political will that was behind it, then we started to hit the difficulties about how do you take those allocations and actually put them into delivery. And in our specific case, if you look at then the local issues that we had to contend with, I think that's where we then started to get into the processes we needed to go through and how could we find a way in which we could take that money from government, bring it into the council, get it across to the steamship group to deliver the vessels that were required, and to find a mechanism to do that, which was acceptable to government, acceptable because it was a large sum of public money and therefore the right accountability, value for money and such like. We had to pass all those tests, but still get it across to the operator so that they could use it to put the new vessels in place. And that's where we found the difficulty of actually translating it from the ambition of levelling up to what the operator needed in a form that the operator could accept as a private company. And we have tried really hard to find, and we came up with a proposal summer 2022, which we felt overcame some of that. But again, from a private operator's perspective, it did involve competition at some point, and that was difficult for a company whose sole purpose is to deliver these services. And we worked really closely with government to try and ease some of those requirements and to try and find a bespoke arrangements. And again, in summer 23, we came back with another proposal, which we felt would get closer to what the companies, respecting the company's position and the uniqueness of the situation. But it still didn't remove the need for, at some point in the future, 10 years on, there would need to be some competition. The vessels would need to be held in public ownership because of the sums involved. And that is the challenge that we had. And I entirely agree with you. We have to take lessons from this. I took a lot of lessons from Route Partnership. I translated those through to a lot of the projects I delivered in Cornwall. It was, you always, when you deliver these projects, reflect on what's gone well and what hasn't gone well, and you take that with you onto what you do next. And I think you're entirely right in that sense. But I think we have learned a lot from where we've been here. The key thing for me is, and interesting, you've all received a letter this week, I believe, from the chairman of the steamship group saying we should now all go off to London and start conversations about subsidies for air services. My experience would be, from what we've been through on levelling up, is I think we should start locally by setting realistic expectations of what we want in terms of subsidies for air services and be clear about what the red lines are from the outset. So if you want to talk about subsidies for air services, Skybus operator, then what are the red lines for you? What are you prepared to accept? What are the sums of money that you'd want? What form would that need to take? And what conditions do you want to set down at the outset that would be acceptable or otherwise in terms of money being put in? Because ultimately, when you get to London, they start to look at this from their perspective and say, how can I ensure value for money? How can I make sure that I'm not skewing the market? How can I ensure I'm not giving unfair advantage to an fixed wing air operator over a helicopter operator? How am I going to make sure I don't challenged on that? And I think we probably need to do a little bit more of that before we go to London in the future. And that would be one of the lessons that I take away from this, that we need to have those discussions locally and not to play those out at government level, because that's when you get into difficulties. And that's when you get to a point where at some point downstream, when you've done an awful lot of work, the private operator turns around and says, I don't like the way this is looking, I'm walking away. And we will have expended all that resource, and we can't go down that route again. And I entirely agree with you. That's a key learning experience for us. But I don't want to. I'm not looking to deflect you from having an independent assessment. I'm quite happy to give advice to members on how that best be set up. But it won't be me leading it. You need to bring somebody in from outside. Sorry for the lengthy answer, but I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that was quite a lengthy answer. Yeah, thanks, Nigel. Yeah, and I take some reassurance that you've highlighted one lesson learned that we can move into the next project or the next phase of this. I still think we should have some kind of review. I take your point. It's a lengthy process and probably an expensive process, but I don't know at what level we would need it to be. I just, for the public's benefit as much as anything, that we have a full written review of what happened and what went wrong when, and so on and so forth, so that the public are clear on everything. I mean, I personally don't have any issue with any of the work that was conducted by the council members and officers. I think from what I've seen, we did everything we possibly could to get the money and to work with partners as well as we could to achieve the goals. But it's not. It needs to all be written down somewhere so that we can say this is what we did when, and do you know what I mean? So something in one document in one place that we can share with the public to highlight what the issues were and what went wrong when and why, and move on from that. But I've probably said enough, and you've talked extensively as well. I'll throw it over to everybody else now. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicola.
I think what's been described as something called an evaluation report, actually, and that's what we do on all our projects when it's externally funded. So if you want to put a recommendation in, I would suggest the wording would be an evaluation report. They're external independent reports that we do on all projects.
Thank you.
Well, I'd be happy to propose that as the fifth recommendation, and that we have an evaluation report.
Right.
Ceilings.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Mumford. Thank you. Right. All those in favour of that amendment or that addition? Thank you. That's carried. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah. So this paper and the next paper, they're two kind of really interlinked for me. So the question I've got, so quite a few questions, which is not meant as any criticism at all to the work that's gone on. Had good chats with Nigel before the scrutiny meeting, so that was really appreciated, and thank you. And everyone has worked tirelessly on this, obviously. Joe, so from what I understand the paper to be, the first part is about recognising the funding's gone. That's obvious. The second part of the petition, I'm glad we're going to change from accept to receive. That makes it a lot more clear about what the petition is. In terms of the actual petition itself, it's created by an anonymous person. Is that all right, Simon, with the policy, the petition policy? Question for Simon.
Simon, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't get my microphone turned on. Yes, thank you for the question. With regards to it, I appreciate that the name on the petition is an anonymous one, but in speaking to the vice chairman and the transport lead member for transport, the person has been checked and verified as a local resident on the Isles of Scilly.
Okay, and just coming back to what Councillor Sims said about, it seems a bit worrying. We need to follow policy rather than being swayed by opinion. And the fact that you're only going to count 130 of the 2,300 signatories. If we checked all 2,300 signatories, surely the idea of accepting the signatories is that we are talking about a really significant volume of people interested in the issue. If we had more the more signatures you have, the more volume we have, the more weight that policy has. So I don't get that argument. 130 is fine. That's what it says in the policy. So we accept it on that basis, not because it's a public interest story or anything like that. It's because anyone else wants to do a petition, it gets more than 100 signatures, then we accept that as well. So we have to receive that. It doesn't matter whether it's about the ceilings, and that's the thing at the moment. It's just about whether there's a fact number. That's it. Going to the fourth recommendation. What are the implications? So at the moment we had 1.6 million from 1.6 million from Department of Levelling Up to do the admin work around the bid. We've spent 700,000 of that. Option D is committing us to continue that work in some respect. And it says in the paper that that's going to be funded from the rest of that 1.6 million. Is that correct? What happens if government says we want the rest of that money back?
Yeah, the initial recommendation is that we will fund that work, as you say, from the remainder of the 1.6 million. If the government asks for the unspent money back, the proposal will be that we will cut our cloth accordingly, because we also received some capacity funding as part of this project, which is held in reserve. We'll use that, but it will be probably a significantly cut back piece of work that will be done, that we will do less work, we will probably get to where Councillor Sims just suggested, is that you end up with more of a hybrid between the council taking a full responsibility forward on this, and there'll be more requirements for the government to lead and spend more of their money driving any further work forward. So what we would like is the government to allow us to keep the remaining money that they've allocated. We can therefore do a significant proportion of the work that's required, and we can control that process, you know, and shape it for the islands and for the community. If we don't get that funding, then we will still have some funding which we can still participate in, but we will be looking at the government taking a much larger role in that process.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's right and proper that the council does take a role in transport strategy for the islands and how that goes forward. We are the I'm not sure I agree with the paper that it's because we don't have any powers that we're the best body for it. I think it's because we are the local authority and we have links to central government, and that we have a almost paternal outlook on the islands. You know, we have a kind of, it's within all of our interests of the people sitting here that the islands are a prosperous, sustainable place, and transport is the bottleneck around that. So it's proper that we do look at it. So I think the most important thing for me is securing the rest of the funding, really. That is the key part. Until we know that, like you've explained, we don't know what work we're going to be doing, really. The stuff set out in Appendix D doesn't seem to me like no offense, like a full-time role. That doesn't seem like a thing. This is why the two papers are kind of linked, because if we're agreeing to one, we're by default agreeing to another. That's what it reads like to me. So the explanation you just gave about the differing levels of work or differing levels of funding, I think should have been in the paper, should have been a bit more defined and clear. So I think, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think I'm proposing that we secure the funding first before agreeing to anything else, to be honest. That's my
It's a plan, isn't it?
but it doesn't say that explicitly here. It doesn't say we will secure the funding and then continue the project.
No.
It says we will continue the project, which is my problem. So
Sorry, could just have the chief executive a minute, please.
Yeah, can I just come in? Thank you, Chair. That it may be perhaps that the recommendation maybe doesn't include it completely and transparently, but it does under the financial section of the report suggest in paragraph 40 that if the government funding is not forthcoming, the council will use its transport reserve, which was set up from that capacity funding, to fund the minimal ongoing expenditure as part of option C. So and then it goes on to say what, as I said just now, and what Councillor Sims said earlier, is in reality then, if we don't get that full package of the 700, 800,000, then you're going to have that hybrid option where the council will have a role, but will have a lesser role and rely more on central government stepping in and funding some of that work that's required to pull together the work that we need to submit in the future about the council's position. But I think it is set out in that paragraph 40, but yeah, so it is in the report.
it is in the report, but it isn't the recommendation. The recommendation is that we do option C. So we need to change the recommendation that reflects that, really.
Nigel, would you like to come in, please?
I understand entirely what you're saying. When I drafted the report, it was in the clear understanding that in promoting option C to you, it was subject to resources being made available from government. I didn't put a, how can you say, a lesser role for the council subject to government saying no. What I was looking to get from you as members is for you to consider clearly the role that the council wants to take subject to that money being made available. I didn't want to put a variant to that in because what I was looking to get, if you're minded to approve that recommendation for, is a clear message from the council back to government that the council is prepared to continue to take a proactive role in transport for the Isles of Scilly and do quite an extensive monitoring role and continue to build the evidence base that presents our needs fully evidenced in the future. But in doing that, we need the resources to do so. And the resources that we want the government to confirm is the remaining £850,000 that we currently hold from the 1.6 million. I didn't want to go back to government and say, but here's a
Yeah.
So it's
Some
quite
options, they'll choose the cheap.
well, exactly. You know that, and so that puts us in a stronger position, I think, to make the case back to government that we retain that funding. Now, if they say no, we want all our 850,000 back. Thank you very much. Then that puts us in the position that the chief executive's just outlined of what can we do with what we've got. But I didn't want to offer that up to government because that would just be too tempting. And I don't think it's in the best interests of the islands. My honest view is, is that the council should perform this role. It is well placed. The phraseology I put in the report of we're not a transport authority, we don't have a role in this, was not to reduce the council's role in transport here. It affects everything that happens on the islands. What I was trying to get across was we're not an operator, so we're independent. We can represent the needs of the users, and we don't have to think about reporting back to shareholders or and those type of things. That allows us to focus on the needs of the users and say, what does the user want, and give the user a voice in terms of the services that we receive. And I think that's a really important role that the council's got to take, and it's not encumbered by having to operate a transport service itself.
Nigel, I'd just like the chief executive to come in a minute, please.
Thank you, Chair. If you do look at recommendation 4, it does have that subject to resources being confirmed by the government, but it's already in there that you're approving doing the work. And they're subject to the government confirming that money is available. Just to extend that to say that, remember that the piece of work we're proposing here is much bigger and wider than the remit that we had previously, which was just the sea links. We want to expand that to take into account the air links and the inter-island connectivity as well, so that we have a total transport solution that we can then take to central government at some point in the future, hopefully joined up with all our partners. Lesson learnt, take the partners with you and make sure that they're aware that as soon as you start knocking on the door of central government and want public funding always comes with some conditions, and you have to all parties have to accept those conditions. That has always been the thorny subject going back. I know we've had the discussion, but going back to the lessons learned from route partnership and now is public money comes with conditions. Do all parties accept those conditions? And that has always been the stumbling block. Hopefully, if we work this from the bottom up, we can help address that going forward, rather than reacting to a pot of money that suddenly just appears. Let's work it from the bottom up. What do we want? That is the proposal here. So it's taking them that, but it is subject to the government okaying that we can retain the 750,000.
Okay, I accept that. What I think I'm learning from this discussion here is about transparency and about everything being out in the open. So, you know, if the more we discuss stuff, the less surprise, the less misunderstanding, the less gaps there are in people's understanding. I understand that there's commercial sensitivities around things, but there is perceptions that direction is being controlled by a group of people, which is not. However, one might argue against that. Perception is key, and that is what people perceive is what they believe. So we need to just make sure that any future work, Joel talked about partnership working, you've talked about essentially partnership working, that we're open and transparent with our partners, because that way we build trust, and that's where we build everyone together. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Yeah, a number of things. Regarding the review, I would very much welcome a review into this. The trouble is that I think the council will be fairly open about it. Partners maybe less so, but the government have moved on. They're going to be quite cagey. They're going to think, no, we're not bothered. It's going to be difficult to get anything that's of value. But I think Nicola's notion of the evaluation report is good. Just regarding the whole levelling up process, we were trundling along quite well up until, I don't know, February 21. I mean, you were there, Nigel, what was there. We were talking to the steamship company, Tresco, etc. It was going quite well, and the plan was that we would put a business case in for new vessels at some point, and then levelling up appeared, and we leapt at it for obvious reasons. It was 3 years ago now. It was all hands to the pump to get it in by June. But as Nigel said, it confused the issue, and I think if it hadn't actually turned up, we may well have been in a much better position now with a much more collegiate relationship with the steamship company and the prospect of new publicly funded vessels, on the horizon, and certainly in a not much better position than we are now. So levelling up, as it appears to be, not just here, but it's been a problem in lots of places, and I think that Fran would agree. Regarding the Economic Prosperity Board, there's been an awful lot of great projects, but they just can't do it because the timelines are not particularly good. So, yeah, levelling up, government needs to do a review of the levelling up process if indeed we need to do one of ours. Regarding the petition again, just for clarification now, you sign the petition, give your email, then you get an email sent to you, and then you spot a verification email, and then you respond to it. And that's the way all these things work. That's the way the government's ones work. You've got to get 10,000 or 100,000 signatures. So the verification, in a way, is done on the basis of the emails replied to you. You get the verification email, but the validation from our perspective was to get it over that 100 hurdle. It's not the same criteria as central government has for this, if you get my drift. Okay. And yeah, that was it really.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grottick, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like, as several members have noted, to just remind everyone it's a pivotal part of our job to communicate the concerns of our community. And we'll do that in as appropriate and best ways we can. Given that the transport and freight options underpin the viability of our fragile community, I would say that it is entirely appropriate that we forward the concerns of our community if they fulfil our protocols, as the petition does, and then we work to carry on with ongoing work to secure the affordable transport and freight options that we've all been working for so long, supported so well by our officers, and as a pivotal part of our corporate plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've had a lot of debate here. I need a proposer and a seconder, please, if we've got one for these recommendations.
I think we've done it.
Still, have we done that? Sorry,
Steve.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just. We've had a lot of debate,
yeah.
and my memories.
I proposed initially and just changing it to received as opposed to accept, and
I would like to second that.
yeah, well,
Okay.
and And then the evaluation one was
Is
gone
that
through
proposing
independently.
all the recommendations? those?
Yeah, but the evaluation one went through independently.
And are you seconding all the
I'd like to
recommendations
second.
with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. All those in favour, please. Carried. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Nigel, for all your work and for this report.
Thank you, members, for your time this morning. If you don't mind, I'm going to leave at this point, as I don't think it's appropriate for me to remain. So thank you.
So item 12 on our agenda is the extension to the post of programme director major projects, which is in the hands of our chief executive, Russell. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we've already mentioned that there is a link through with this report to the previous one. The role of the programme director was on a fixed term contract. The recruitment of that post originally was done through the normal recruitment process. There was a full interview process, and members were involved in that because of the seniority of the role, with a recommendation to full council, where the decision was made to appoint the person in post. So we have done a recruitment process that fulfilled our normal processes. That contract had limitations in terms of the length of it, because of it was linked to being funded from the project. So it wasn't going to be a ongoing contract of employment, because it was linked to the funding. We've now reached this criteria in the project where the contract is at an end. We need to move forward and say there is still more work to be done. We've just agreed that the council will have a role. And have a role going forward, we need a resource that we can use to do that work for the council. We don't currently have that resource, that expertise, or those skills within the council's existing workforce. Therefore, the proposal here is that we extend the role of the major projects manager and director for a further period up to a maximum end date. And that's a maximum end date. Therefore, if funding dries up before then, we will cease the contract earlier. If the work reaches a conclusion earlier, we will cease the contract. So it's not a contract that runs to the 31st of March 2026. Regardless, it's up to as a maximum length of contract to the 31st of March. And I would be monitoring that with my role as head of paid service. And if the role is no longer needed, or no longer we have the funding for it, we would cease that role. The role, as set out in the report, will be funded with a combination of funding, because the post holder does work on a national basis, and that is funded on a national basis. The other 3 days we will fund from the resources we've got for levelling up, either by retaining the 750,800,000 we've discussed in the previous report, or by using the transport reserve, which was set up from the capacity funding in the first instance. As I said, there would be no cost to the authority from general fund, because we would cease the role if the funding was not available. So it's not making this open-ended to the 31st of March 2026. There is the tie-in that the funding has to still be in place to fund it, so there's no draw on normal council resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, this is the second full council in a row where we've had a discussion about recruitment and retention of a member of staff who is easily identifiable. We had it last time and we've had it this time. What is our thinking behind this being in the public domain and not part 3? My understanding was if an individual could be identified, which you don't have to be a genius to identify this one, it should be a part 3. So I'm just asking that question. Why is this in open forum and not private discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That's a good point, but in consultation with the monitoring officer, we decided it would be a part one report. We do try and keep as much stuff in part one as possible so that we're open and transparent. There is a fine measure between how you can be open and transparent and how that you move into the process that everything from a public perception is in part three. I know there is a link, but with all roles that we recruit to, there is always an ability to probably work out linkages back to specific people. As I say, I did consult with the monitoring officer and we felt that it was appropriate to do on that basis, and the original recruitment was done through that process as well.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, how much is in the transport reserve?
25k.
Don't know off the top of my head, I can check, but it was well in excess of 200,000 last I looked, but we will be drawing on some of that during the current year.
And that was a grant from government to do no ring fence at all. What to do with transport?
It came as capacity for levelling up, but it comes as a general fund on this, with no conditions. So it is given. It is provided like a lot of our grants are these days. It's given to us to carry out certain activity. When they then provide the money to us, they don't actually tie that down with conditions. So yes, we can use it.
Councillor Bedford, please.
I'm a bit lost with this. I am sorry. I did check with Simon. Anthony said it was a new role and a new title. And it says here, financial implications. This is an existing post and the role is 100% funded from Levelling Up grant, 3 days. I still don't understand how it's funded. I still don't understand actually what the role is. The previous consultant's role, my understanding, is now ended with the government withdrawing the Levelling Up funding. And I'm just, when Councillor Dean asked for an evaluation of why the government withdrew the funding, I just think we're jumping into another role now, and it's a whole new, it's not a major project. We haven't got a major project, and we're asked to extend the post of the programme director major projects. Well, what projects are we talking about? We haven't had a formal paper saying what the project is. We've talked about it here, about making sure that our air and sea links are resilient and economic and sustainable. But I'm a bit lost on this one. I am sorry, but I just don't get what we're being asked to do, apart from extend someone that was in a role, a previous role that is no longer existing. And it says here about it's being financed from the existing Levelling Up grant, but we don't know that because we don't know whether the government is withdrawing that. Is that right? Am I a bit lost on this?
I come back. First of all, it is an existing role. It's not a new role. The role was recruited with that job title to work on the major transport project, but with oversight and assistance against some of our other major projects we've got, like the museum, etc. So Nigel, the person in the post, does feed into and provide assistance and advice on some of the other major project work we are doing, but it was specifically for that major project. I agree, but that we've got work further to continue. We have a person in post. They're not a consultant. They are an employee of the council. So let's get that on record. It is an employed person of the council. They have an employment contract with the council. They're not a consultant. What we're saying is that this person has the skills and the role that's going to continue is similar to the role that they're carrying out in terms of working with central government, working with partners on transport in particular, and working out what our ask is of the government. Very similar to the existing role. As I said, we've agreed that we have that requirement still to continue. We've agreed we need to do that piece of work. I, as head of paid service, need a resource to do that piece of work on your behalf. It will be funded from the levelling up money that we are now asking government to allow us to remain with us. If that isn't agreed, then as I said, we do have the money that was given for the transport project initially as capacity funding, and this is sort of capacity activity. We can use that in the interim and then make a decision of what our role is going forward, and whether, as I said, whether we keep the post going or not in that instance. But at the moment, unless we have an agreement to extend the contract, then the person will then, the post will be then made redundant, and we won't have any resource going forward.
I would like to just ask Councillor Bedford before you come back, or rather I would like to add that the report we've just received, the last report, spells out a lot of the issues around transport generally that we still have to consider in order to be able to provide affordable, resilient services for our residents and our visitors in terms of passenger fares, be they sea or air, and indeed our freight. So there's still a lot of work to do. That's not over. The money might have been withdrawn from levelling up, but the need to try and provide those important services for our community continues. And more to add to that, more importantly, we have a crisis at the airport, as we're all absolutely aware, and we have to solve that, and somebody has to solve it. And if we do not have in post somebody with the experience to be able to deal with that, where are we going to, how are we going to resource that and look after the future of our airport and our air links? So I would just like to add that to what Russell has said. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand that. I really understand the importance, but I don't see a role profile here. And I'm still a bit confused about the funding, because you did say if we don't get it from the levelling up, it will come from reserve. It doesn't say that in financial implications. It also says 3 days and South West Regional Transport Board 2 days. So is it a 5-day post or a 3-day post? So how many days are we looking at? I just find this role it's a bit thin, that's what I'm trying to say. I just need some more meat to it. I absolutely understand what you're saying about the importance. Heavens above, we've just had levelling up for the last 4 years. We all live here. We've just had a winter from hell trying to get supplies over. And I just was almost, I'm a bit confused about the actual role. And I know the destination we're going. I just don't know the meat that gets us there, really. But I understand what you're saying.
And come back and confirm that the role with the council, the employment contract will be 5 days a week, just to give you that and set out. 3 days a week we'll be working on transport for the council. 2 days is working on national transport issues, which is funded from national government funding, not part of our funding.
I mean, that doesn't help at all, really.
It says in the report, South West Regional Transport Board.
Yeah, I know.
Fund 2 days.
So my issue, right? Would it be? What I'm trying to get my head around is that we've got a role. It's kind of dependent on getting the levelling up, securing the rest of the 850k. If we don't secure the rest of the 850k, we've got transport reserve and the rest of the Southwest Development money. Is that Southwest Development money secure? That's secure for ad infinitum or for what?
I think at the moment it's secure for as far as we can see into the future.
Okay. It just seems a bit. I don't know. It's woolly. I'm struggling like Anita. I mean, I totally get the role. I get how important it is. I get that it's really, really important that the council continues to be there and to talk about stuff. But this paperwork doesn't make that clear. It doesn't set it out how I need to. I want to be able to say, yeah, right, just do it. Please do it. I've read it. I totally understand it. But I've got questions and I can't quite surface what those questions are. But it's not clear here.
With you, councillor.
Okay, well, I mean, the recommendation there is for you. If you don't agree it, then we will look at a different solution for resourcing the project going forward. That's all I can say. If that's what members' advice, recommendation is, that we don't extend the contract, I will have to look for an alternative solution.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Sims, please.
Firstly, I'm inclined to agree with Joel that this perhaps should have been part three. I mean, Nigel was sat there 10 minutes ago. He's outside now and he can listen to it. Now, I have no issue with Nigel continuing this role. I've got nothing but praise for Nigel. But if I wanted to actually say Nigel gets this job over my dead body, I absolutely didn't do that in these circumstances because I think it should have been in part three. However, we have an ongoing crisis with transport on the Arts of Selly. There's no doubt about that. We have someone in place who's got very, very well placed with government. He's got lots and lots of contacts with them. He knows what's going on. And if it's not Nigel, at some point it's going to be somebody else. And I think Nigel is absolutely the best person to do this. Now, I agree that this isn't much of a paper for this. I think that it should have been a little bit broader. And I think that would have maybe made members feel a little bit better. I completely take what you're saying, Dan. You're absolutely right. It's not so much confusing, it's just nothing there. So so that, lesson learned on that. But I think if we do lose Nigel, then we have got very serious issues going forward because we're going to go back to square one with government. We need to, at the very least, tread water until we've got a government in place again, which I think arguably we haven't at the minute. And the state of flux we got over here regarding transport changes, we got to try and at least stay in the same place, else we're just going to go back to square one and the whole thing's going to, well, revert to where it was years ago. So I'm happy to propose the recommendation, but I do completely take on board Anita and Dan's reservations about it because I think they're not unreasonable.
Chief Executive.
I mean, if members are, I know the councillor's just proposed the recommendation, but if members are minded that they want more information, then one possibility could be that you change the date to a much earlier date, maybe 3 months or something, to a maximum end date of the 31st. Then you have to bring another report back before then. The existing contract is out. I think it was the initial appointment was done on the 1st of May. So that is why the report here today. It obviously runs out on the 30th.
Can I extend that and say with a detailed project plan because we haven't got, the role profile was 2 years ago. We're talking about a totally different job now, almost, because the role profile was about leveling up, isn't it? So it's going to, I would propose that recommendation of coming back in 3 months with more fleshed out project plan on what the role to achieve.
Yes. I can commit that we'll come back in 3 months with a more detailed role profile and with an outline project plan. I think to put a whole project plan together for the next 2 years of everything we're going to do in real detail is probably going to be a struggle, but we can certainly give you the indicative project plan, what the activity will look like.
Okay. Proposal then is to come back to council within 3 months with confirmation of funding, how the post is funded, and with an outline project plan, describe activity over the next. Yeah. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
It's, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, if that's a proposal that members want to take forward. I mean, yeah, I will try and see what we can get done. I can commit that we can get back in that time. Yeah, whether we can retain, yeah, we'll come back with a role, whether we have a person in the role or have to advertise it at that point, I can't comment at the moment.
I have to point out to you, Councillor Marcus, from the chair, that we may lose this project director if he hasn't got any, he may well take another position, which is entirely your choice to do. But I would point that out, that is
his choice. Don't put that. It's his choice, not my choice.
Sorry?
It's his choice if he doesn't take the role, not my choice.
No, I'm just saying to you that if you want to impose this, then we have to, as a council, consider the fact that he may not wish to do this role. So I just want to make that point. That's all I'm saying. Councillor, sorry, you've made a proposal. Do you have a seconder, please, for Councillor Marcus's proposal? Councillor Bedford, thank you. All those in favour of Councillor Marcus's proposal?
Can we just
Sorry. All right.
Can I just
hold that for a moment till we finish our discussion? Councillor Sims.
I would suggest that a way round this is to run with this recommendation, but make it subject to review in 3 months, as opposed to changing everything. Wholesale. Yeah, come back with a project plan in 3 months, and then we can review it then, and then we can. And then the situation regarding Nigel's perspective carries on in the interim.
Thank you, Councillor Mumford, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to propose actually that we approve this subject to project plan
and confirmation of funding.
And confirmation of funding. It's the same sort of thing, but just word is slightly different. Would get the approval subject to project and the money, the funding.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grottick, please.
I'd just like to remind members that your chief executive has just given you an assurance that he will work to provide members with further details of the role profile. And I'm just wondering about the financial implications and what is actually meant by a project plan, because I trust that Councillor Mumford doesn't mean, as the chief exec has suggested, the work that would be involved in the detail. And also we don't really know how the project plan will actually develop, given that we have agreed to move forward with further work on the transport agenda, and we don't really know where that will take us, especially with regard to the airport. So while I accept that councillors would like more information, I would strongly recommend that we go with the existing proposal, subject to further information being provided.
That's just what I've said.
Yeah, I was just clarifying that you didn't mean that when you said subject to a project plan, you didn't mean the detail of the work that we were going to be doing in the next 2 years.
Some sort of detail, yes.
An outline project plan.
An outline project plan, then.
So I will withdraw my proposal. And second Councillor Mumford's proposal.
That we approve extension of the road. Yes, the same as this recommendation, subject to funding and an outline project plan. For 3 months.
So it's the same as this recommendation, plus, because this recommendation is subject to funding anyway, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So with the addition of a report coming back to council with 3 months explaining how the post is funded and with an outline project plan.
Okay.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah. Right, so we have a proposal from Councillor Mumford, seconded by Councillor Marcus. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. So we now have to take the, do we have to take the recommendation? Done. Yeah, no, we're all done. Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to item 13 on our agenda, which is our council calendar for 2024 to 2026, which I hope will be a little bit easier. In the hands of Andrew Thomas. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. I got nothing really to add. It does feel a bit like at the end of the news and that kind of, and finally, a bit of light-hearted. So please have at it.
Councillor Mumford, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Andy, could we please have the scrutiny committees for June the 25th and September the 24th to start at 1 p.m. and June the 27th at 1 p.m. and April the 23rd at 1 p.m. please. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, please.
Just a quick one, Chair. Point 6 of a report talks about the Health and Wellbeing Board, and it talks about it being held on Cornwall Council premises. My understanding is the first Health and Wellbeing Board of this year in June will be held in our premises. And I think there's an opportunity for us to have the formal Health and Wellbeing Board business. And I think it would be a lost opportunity if we didn't give some consideration and planning and thought to how we make the maximum of those local decision makers being on island to highlight some of the other issues which are more locally orientated.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Yeah, no, I'm talking Andy Guy really, because he's obviously not here. He was very keen to have the May meeting moved till 6 o'clock. Now, I would like that, but I can see there's reasons for it not to happen. But all I would just say with the that May meeting, I cannot attend at 9:30 because I absolutely have to do the first bus to get people in the boat. So if we could actually move that meeting till 10 o'clock, at least I could, for once in my life, vote for chairman, really. It's just that I mean that's only from my perspective, and if anybody else think that's not that bad, that's fine. But I don't think that we're going to get it the whole meeting until 6 o'clock. But I just think if we could possibly do that, that would be useful. Thank you.
Councillor Grosset, please.
Thank you, Chair. It will obviously be at the then chairman's discretion when we get to June. But I've been approached by enough members to make me think that there is a sizable amount of members who actually would like the May meeting to be moved. So before we discuss any other meetings, can we have a decision on the June meeting? Do you think that would be useful? Can we move the June? Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused. We've had a long meeting. The May meeting, our annual council meeting, there seems to be a sizable proportion of members who would like this moved to the evening. So can we discuss that first quickly?
Well, I think the thing is, you're quite right. There has been some conversation about this, Vice Chairman. The question is there somebody amongst our members who would like to propose?
Well, I'm happy to propose that it moves to 6 o'clock.
Yeah, to 6 o'clock. Is there a seconder that meeting's moved to 6 o'clock, please? Councillor Grottick. All those in favour of moving the May meeting to 6 o'clock? Or all those who wish to keep the meeting at 9:30? So it's up to me. So why don't I suggest the meeting's at 10 o'clock?
Well done.
I mean, all I would say is that Andy isn't here because of this issue, and if he was here, he would certainly vote for it to go through. So it's just the point. I know it's irrelevant, but however, it's sort of relevant in a way because it's the reason why he's not here.
There's also off-island. There is also off-island councillors to consider as well. Councillor.
What I was only going to say, I'd rather it was in the evening, but it's not the end of the world for me. So you know, and there are off-island members that are probably So,
Okay, well, I've given my casting vote that it's 10 o'clock on, for the May meeting. Sorry. Thank you. So are there any other amendments, please, for our calendar required by anybody for us to consider? Therefore, with that change, could I have a proposer for the adoption of the calendar, please? Councillor Legg, seconded Councillor Bedford. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much. And with that, I close the meeting. Thank you very much indeed.